The morning was peaceful, the kind of quiet I had worked hard to earn. Sunlight streamed through my apartment window, casting a golden hue over the small but cozy living room. I had just settled at my kitchen table, cradling a warm cup of coffee, ready to savor the calm before my busy day began. Then my phone rang. I glanced at the screen, and the sight of the caller ID made my stomach clench. Mom. The name alone stirred up a storm of emotions: anger, resentment, betrayal. We hadn't spoken in years, and I had been perfectly fine with that. She only called when she needed something. I let the phone ring for a few seconds, debating whether to answer. Maybe I should ignore it, let her voice fade into the void like she had let my home slip away without a second thought. But curiosity won. I exhaled sharply and picked up the call. Hello. My tone was clipped, guarded. At first, there was silence. Then, a hesitant, almost timid voice. Sweetheart. I nearly scoffed at the word. Sweetheart. As if I were still some naive child who hadn't been robbed blind by the woman claiming to love me. What do you want, Mom? I asked, cutting straight to the point. She hesitated. That alone told me everything. She wasn't calling to make amends. She wasn't calling because she missed me. She needed something. She faltered before sighing heavily. I need a favor. Of course, she did. I leaned back in my chair, gripping my mug tighter. What kind of favor? There was another pause, like she was trying to find the right words to manipulate me. Well, I've fallen on some hard times, and she let out a dramatic sigh, the kind that once used to soften me when I was younger. I need a place to stay. Just for a little while. Until I get back on my feet. A slow smile crept onto my face, one laced with bitter amusement. This was poetic justice. The woman who stole my home from me was now begging for a home. I took my time responding, savoring the moment. Where's the house? I asked, my voice deceptively calm. Silence. Then, a nervous chuckle. What? The house, I repeated, my tone colder this time. My house. The one Grandma and Grandpa left for me. The one you sold without telling me. Where is it? A sharp inhale. She wasn't expecting me to bring it up. Oh, honey, that was so long ago, she said, attempting a soft, dismissive tone. Let's not. I was in college. I cut her off, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. I came home for summer break, and my home was gone. Strangers were living in it. You didn't even tell me until I saw them sitting in our living room. I could hear her swallow hard. I had no choice. We needed the money. I scoffed. No. She needed the money. And not for me. Not for bills. Not for food. She needed it for her boyfriend's so-called business venture, a ridiculous dream of opening a bar that never made a dime. The bar failed in less than a year, and all the money, my money, was gone. I lost everything because of her greed. I was forced to scramble, to find my own way, to build a new life from nothing. And now, she wanted to come crawling back? You stole my home from me, I said, my voice sharp as a blade. And now you expect me to give you one. Silence. Then, a pathetic, trembling voice. Please, baby, she whispered. Just for a little while. I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply, letting the satisfaction settle in. No. And I hung up. For the first time in years, I felt truly at peace. The house wasn't just a house. It was a sanctuary, a place filled with warmth, safety, and love. It had been my grandparents' home first, the place where I took my first steps, where I spent lazy summers playing in the backyard, where I sat on Grandpa's lap as he read me stories by the fireplace. It was a small but beautiful house, painted white with blue shutters, the kind of home that always felt welcoming. The front porch had a swing where Grandma used to sit in the evenings, humming softly as the breeze rolled through. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and fresh bread, the floors creaked in all the familiar places, and the attic was filled with memories, old photos, forgotten toys, and dusty trunks filled with stories of the past. It was ours. And most importantly, it was supposed to be mine. When my grandparents passed away, they left the house to me, knowing it would give me stability, knowing it was what they wanted for their granddaughter. My mother, Melanie, wasn't supposed to touch it. But she did. I was 19 when I lost everything. I had just finished my second year of college, excited to come home for the summer. I missed my room, my bed, the smell of the house, the way it felt to be back in the only place that ever truly belonged to me. But when I arrived, my key didn't fit the lock. Confused, I knocked on the door, thinking maybe the lock had been changed. The door opened, but instead of my mother, a stranger stood there. A middle-aged man, wearing a confused expression. "Can I help you?" I blinked at him, my stomach twisting. I live here." The man frowned. "I think you have the wrong house." "No, this is my house," I insisted, my voice shaking. "My grandparents' house." The man's expression softened, like he realized something. "Oh, are you Melanie's daughter?" Dread crawled up my spine. "Yes." "I'm sorry," he said, looking genuinely apologetic. "She sold the house months ago. My wife and I bought it from her." His words felt like a slap. "Sold? No. That was impossible. This was my house. She couldn't have. She wouldn't have. But she did." I felt my knees go weak, my head spinning. She hadn't even told me. No warning. No explanation. Nothing. I found her later that evening, sitting on the couch in her new apartment. A rented apartment. She had sold our home and didn't even buy another one. She looked up at me, a bored expression on her face. "Oh, you found out. You sold my house." My voice trembled with rage. She sighed, setting down her wine glass. "It wasn't just your house, sweetheart. It was mine too." "No, it wasn't," I snapped. "Grandma and Grandpa left it to me. It was in their will." She rolled her eyes. "Technically, they left it to both of us. I was their daughter. I had a right to it too." I clenched my fists, trying to keep myself from screaming. "Why? Why did you do it?" She shrugged, like it wasn't a big deal. "I needed the money." "For what?" "For James's business," she said, as if it were obvious. "He had this amazing idea to open a bar, and we needed startup money." I couldn't breathe. She had sold my childhood home to fund her boyfriend's bar? A man who wasn't even my father? A man she had only been dating for 2 years? My stomach twisted with fury. "Where's the money now?" She waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, that was a long time ago. The business didn't work out." "So you threw away my home," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "for nothing?" She scoffed. "Don't be so dramatic. It was just a house." Just a house. I stared at her, my heart pounding with rage, disgust, hatred. She had taken everything from me, and she didn't even care. She never cared. That was the moment I realized something. I was done with her. I had to start from scratch. I had no home to return to. No inheritance. Nothing. I had to work extra hours, take out more loans, and struggle just to keep myself afloat. Meanwhile, my mother and James went on expensive vacations, bought new clothes, wasted every last cent of the money she stole from me. And when it all ran out, James left her. She lost the apartment. She lost everything. And when she came crawling back to me, begging for a place to stay, I made sure she would never have a home again. It had been nearly 8 years since my mother sold my childhood home out from under me. 8 years since she took everything I had, left me with nothing, and never looked back. I had spent those years clawing my way to a stable life. I worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs while finishing my degree. I had no safety net, no place to run back to if I failed. But I didn't fail. I survived. And eventually, I thrived. I had my own apartment, small, but mine. I had a good job, one that let me live comfortably. I wasn't rich, but I had worked too damn hard to get to where I was. Then, out of nowhere, my mother called me. It was the first time I had heard her voice in years. At first, I thought maybe she had changed. Maybe time had softened her, maybe she had realized the damage she had done. But no. She only called because she needed something. "I don't have anywhere to go," she said, her voice trembling. "James left me. The money's gone. I lost my apartment. I just need a place to stay. Just for a little while." I felt nothing for her. No sympathy. No sadness. She had never once worried about me when I was struggling. She had never once called to check on me after she stole my home. Now, She expected me to save her? No. I wouldn't. I kept my voice calm, indifferent. I can't help you. She sounded stunned, like she couldn't believe I was turning her down. But I'm your mother. I let out a hollow laugh. And I was your daughter when you threw me out of my own home. Funny how that didn't matter then. She started crying, trying to play the victim, but I wasn't falling for it. She made her choice years ago. Now, she had to live with it. I hung up, feeling lighter than I had in years. Months passed. She must have burned every bridge she had because she called again. This time, she wasn't pretending to be my mother. She wasn't trying to guilt-trip me. She was desperate. I don't have anywhere to go, she admitted. No one will take me in. Please, I just need some help. I leaned back in my chair, staring out my apartment window. This was exactly where she had left me all those years ago, alone, with nowhere to turn. But unlike her, I had figured it out. And so could she. Not my problem, I said. Her breath hitched. I'm your mother. I laughed coldly. You stopped being my mother when you sold my home and left me for dead. She whimpered, but I wasn't moved. She had made her bed. Now she could lie in it. I hung up. And I never picked up her calls again. Over the next few years, my mother tried everything. She burned through every favor, stayed with distant relatives until they got sick of her, begged old friends for help until they shut their doors. No one wanted to take in a woman who had spent her whole life using people. And me? I made sure she had no way back to stability. When she tried to get a lease, I warned landlords about her history of financial recklessness. When she applied for jobs, I let people know how she had scammed even her own child. When she tried to rebuild, I made sure she failed. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about justice. She had stolen my home. So I made sure she would never have one again. My mother had always been a survivor. She had a way of slipping out of consequences, of talking her way into people's good graces, of making herself seem like the victim. But not this time. Her luck had finally run out. After I shut her out, she bounced from one place to another. Distant cousins, old friends, even a few ex-boyfriends. Each time, she wore out her welcome. She'd overstay, refuse to contribute, use people up until they had nothing left to give. Then, they'd throw her out. At first, she managed to get by, hopping from couch to couch, finding just enough sympathy to keep going. But sympathy only lasts so long when you refuse to help yourself. Soon, she had nowhere left to go. She called me one last time. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice was weak, desperate. I don't know where else to turn. I don't have anywhere to go. Please, just talk to me. I listened. And then, I deleted it. She was nothing to me now. Word got around. A few distant relatives reached out to me. Your mom is in a bad place, they said. You should help her. I laughed. Did she help me when she sold my home? I asked. Did she care when I had to work 3 jobs just to keep a roof over my head? Silence. That was what I thought. I wasn't cold-hearted. I had just learned the truth. Some people don't deserve second chances. Some betrayals can't be forgiven. And my mother had never once shown remorse. She didn't regret what she did. She only regretted that it backfired. She tried to get into a shelter. She was denied. Too many burned bridges. She tried to get a job. Too many people knew what she had done. She tried to rebuild her life, but I had made sure she had nothing left to build with. I watched from afar as she spiraled. The woman who once sneered at me for struggling to pay my rent was now begging for a place to sleep. The woman who once told me to get over it was now crushed under the weight of her own choices. She had no home. And she never would again. One night, I got an email from her. It was short, just a few lines. I know you hate me. I know I deserve it. But I'm still your mother. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. I stared at the screen. And for the first time in years, I felt something. Not sympathy. Not sadness. Just emptiness. She wanted redemption. But she didn't deserve it. I closed the email. And I never looked back. Months passed. Then, out of the blue, I got another message. This time, it wasn't from my mother. It was from Aunt Linda, my mother's older sister, the only family member who had ever treated me with kindness. She asked to meet for coffee. I agreed, mostly out of curiosity. When I arrived, she was already seated, a cup of tea in front of her. Her face was weary, her eyes full of something between pity and frustration. "I know you don't want to hear this," she started, "but your mother is struggling." I laughed bitterly. She's always been struggling. Usually because of her own choices. Linda sighed. "She's worse this time." I stayed silent, waiting. "She's been staying at a church shelter, but even they're about to kick her out. No money, no job, nowhere to go. She's sick, too. Not just broke, physically sick." I felt my jaw tighten, but I didn't say anything. "She's lost everything," Linda continued. "I know what she did to you was horrible. But this is your mother, and she's hit rock bottom." I took a slow sip of my coffee. "So?" I asked. Linda's eyes widened. "So, maybe it's time to let go of the past. Give her another chance." I let out a sharp breath, shaking my head. "She never gave me one," I said coldly. "She's your mother. And that meant nothing to her when she stole my home and left me in the gutter." Linda flinched. "She's paying for that now." "Good," I said. She stared at me for a long moment, then sighed. "You've really hardened your heart, haven't you?" "No," I said. "She did." Linda shook her head, disappointed. But I didn't care. I finished my coffee, placed a few bills on the table, and stood. If she's finally feeling what it's like to have nowhere to go, then maybe that's justice. Then I walked away. After that, my mother stopped trying to reach me. Maybe she finally understood that there was nothing left between us. I heard through the family grapevine that she was still couch surfing, still struggling, still alone. Every time someone tried to guilt-trip me into helping her, I asked them one simple question. "Where were you when she did it to me?" That always shut them up. In the end, I had made sure of one thing. She would never have a home again. Not with me. Not anywhere. And for the first time in years, I slept peacefully. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. No more calls. No more emails. No more people trying to guilt me into forgiving the woman who had destroyed me. I had won. I had made sure she would never have a place to call home again. And yet, on some nights, when the world was quiet, a strange thought crept into my mind. Was it enough? She had stolen my childhood home. She had left me homeless and helpless. She had thrown me away like I was nothing. And now? Now, she was living the same nightmare she once forced on me. It was justice. So why did I feel like there was still a weight in my chest? One evening, I left work late, exhausted but satisfied. Life was good. I had my own apartment, my bills were paid, and I had built a life without her. Then, as I walked toward my building, I saw a familiar figure sitting on a nearby bench. At first, I thought I was imagining things. But no. It was her. She looked broken. Her once pristine clothes were now worn and mismatched. Her hair, once perfectly styled, was tangled and streaked with gray. She sat hunched over, arms wrapped around herself, staring blankly at the pavement. For a moment, I stood there, watching. I should have felt triumphant. This was what she deserved. But instead, I felt nothing. Not pity. Not anger. Not satisfaction. Then, as if sensing me, she lifted her head. Her eyes met mine. And in that moment, I saw something I never expected. Recognition. Regret. Defeat. She didn't call out to me. She didn't try to speak. She just looked at me, her eyes heavy with something that almost looked like an apology. But it was too late for that. I turned and walked inside my building. I never looked back. That was the last time I ever saw my mother. I don't know where she went after that. Maybe she found another couch to sleep on. Maybe she ran out of options. Maybe she finally understood what it meant to have nothing. Either way, I never heard from her again. And I didn't need to. I had my home. And she had none. That was all the closure I needed. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Life moved on. I focused on work, my friends, and the life I had built without her. My home was truly mine, no longer haunted by the memories of what she had taken from me. I should have felt at peace. But every so often, late at night, when the city was quiet and my thoughts had nowhere to hide, I would remember the look in her eyes. The last time I saw her, sitting on that cold bench, alone, defeated. She hadn't begged. She hadn't reached out. She had just looked at me. And something about that look refused to leave me. One evening, I was at a dinner party with a few friends. Laughter filled the air, glasses clinked, and conversations flowed effortlessly. Then, someone casually mentioned their mother. A simple story, something about a childhood memory, a funny habit their mom had. And for the first time in years, I felt a pang of something deep inside me. I had spent so long hating my mother, making sure she suffered, that I had forgotten something important. Once, before everything fell apart, she had been just a mom. Not a liar. Not a thief. Not the woman who betrayed me. Just a mother. And I couldn't remember a single good thing about her anymore. Had she ever sung me to sleep? Had she ever held me when I cried? Had I buried those memories beneath the weight of my revenge? A few weeks later, I got a call from Aunt Linda. I debated ignoring it, but something told me to pick up. Her voice was softer than usual. "It's about your mother." I didn't say anything. Linda sighed. "She's gone." For a moment, I thought I had misheard. Gone. She passed away 2 nights ago. A heart attack. Silence stretched between us. She had no one, Linda continued gently. They found her in a shelter. No family listed. No home. Nothing. I felt something in my chest, a tightness I couldn't place. Not grief. Not sadness. Something else. Something that felt strangely close to emptiness. I didn't cry. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel anything. I had spent years making sure my mother suffered, making sure she felt the pain of betrayal the way I had. And now? Now, she was gone. There was no victory left to savor. No justice left to see through. Just silence. Aunt Linda told me they were looking for someone to claim the body. She didn't pressure me. She just told me the truth. She had no one, you know, Linda said softly. In the end, she had no home, no friends, no family. Nothing. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. She did that to herself, I finally said. Linda sighed. I know. There was a long pause before she asked, "Do you want to see her one last time?" I thought about it. I thought about everything. And then, I gave her my answer. A final, quiet decision that would close this chapter forever. One way or another. I didn't go. I didn't need to. The past was buried long before she was. Aunt Linda handled the arrangements, a simple cremation, no funeral, no mourners. She didn't even ask me to help with the costs, probably because she already knew what my answer would be. A few days later, she sent me a short text. "It's done." And that was it. No more mother. No more unfinished business. I had spent years making sure she never had a home again. Now, she never would. I should have felt satisfied. I had spent so long imagining what it would be like when she was finally gone for good, when she wasn't calling, wasn't begging, wasn't out there somewhere, a ghost of my past still breathing. And now? Now, there was nothing left of her. But as I sat alone in my apartment that night, staring at my reflection in the window, an unexpected thought crept in. Had I really won? She had lost everything, yes. But in my obsession with making sure she suffered, I had lost something too. I had spent years carrying the weight of my revenge. Now, I didn't know what to do without it. A week after her death, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to pick up. "Hello." A man cleared his throat. "Is this," he hesitated, "her son?" I knew immediately who he meant. "Yes. I'm calling from the shelter where your mother was staying." I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. "Why?" "She left something for you," he said. "A small box. Said you might want it." I almost told him to throw it away. But instead, I found myself saying, "I'll come get it." The shelter was nothing more than a small, run-down building tucked between a liquor store and a laundromat. Inside, a tired-looking man handed me a showbox wrapped in a plastic bag. "She didn't talk about you much," he said, studying me. "But when she did, she sounded like she regretted things." I said nothing. I took the box, turned, and left. I didn't open it until I was home. Inside were a few small things. A crumpled photograph of me as a child. A cheap locket with a tiny picture of my grandparents inside. A handwritten letter. I hesitated before unfolding the letter. Her handwriting was shaky, uneven. But the words hit harder than I expected. I know you hate me. And I deserve it. But I want you to know. I never stopped loving you. My hands tightened around the paper. I wanted to tear it apart. Instead, I just sat there, staring at it, feeling something I couldn't name. For years, I had believed she was incapable of love. That she had thrown me away without a second thought. And maybe she had. But somewhere, deep in the mess of who she was, maybe there had been a sliver of something real. Something that didn't make up for what she did. But something, nonetheless. I didn't forgive her. I couldn't. But that night, for the first time in years, I stopped feeling the need to punish her. She was gone. Her suffering was over. And mine? Mine had lasted longer than it should have. I took the letter and the locket and tucked them into the back of a drawer. Not to cherish. Not to hold on to. But to remind myself that I had spent enough time living in the past. It was time to start living for myself. And so, I finally let go. For the first time in years, my life wasn't tied to my mother in some way. There were no more bitter thoughts about revenge. No more phone calls I had to ignore. No more wondering where she was. She was gone. And so was the burden I had carried for so long. But something unexpected happened. With the weight of revenge lifted, I started realizing how empty I had let my life become. I had spent years fueled by anger, resentment, and the need to make her suffer. I had been so focused on making sure she had nothing that I never stopped to ask myself what I actually wanted. And now that I had won, I didn't know what to do next. One Saturday afternoon, I found myself driving back to my childhood neighborhood. I hadn't been there in years. I told myself it was just curiosity, just a passing thought that led me there. But when I parked outside the house I had once called home, I knew the truth. I had unfinished business. It wasn't about my mother anymore. It was about me. The house looked different. The new owners had repainted it, added a new porch, even put up a tire swing in the front yard. It wasn't mine anymore. It hadn't been for a long time. A little girl ran across the yard, laughing as she chased a small dog. I watched her for a moment, then got back in my car and drove away. I had spent years mourning what I had lost. But in the end, it was just a house. The real damage my mother had done had nothing to do with four walls and a roof. She had taken my trust. My sense of security. My belief in family. And I was finally ready to take it back. The next few months were different. I started saying yes more, to invitations, to new experiences, to things I had once ignored. I made an effort to rebuild friendships I had let fade. I started therapy, not because I needed to understand my mother, but because I needed to understand myself. For so long, I thought that getting revenge would be enough. But revenge wasn't the same as healing. It had been necessary. It had given me closure. But it hadn't given me peace. That, I had to create for myself. And for the first time in years, I was ready to try. Letting go of my mother's betrayal didn't happen overnight. It wasn't as simple as waking up one morning and deciding to be okay. Some days, I still felt the echoes of my anger. Other days, I caught myself replaying every moment of the past, the day she sold the house, the years she spent couch surfing, the final time I saw her. But slowly, the past stopped controlling me. I started focusing on the present. I poured more of myself into work, not as a distraction but because I finally wanted to build something real. Something that was mine. I reconnected with my best friend, Jason, who had always been there, even when I had been too consumed with my revenge to notice. "You're actually calling me first," he joked when I invited him out for drinks. "Is this real life?" I laughed. "Yeah. I figured it was time to stop being a shitty friend." He grinned. "Took you long enough." And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the person I used to be. I felt like someone new. One afternoon, as I was cleaning out some old boxes, I found the letter my mother had left me. I had shoved it into a drawer after reading it, unsure of what to do with it. Now, as I held it in my hands, I realized something. For all my hatred, for all the ways she had wronged me, I had still needed her to love me. And that was the real wound, the one that no amount of revenge could fix. She had loved me, in her own broken way. But she had never been the mother I needed her to be. And that was something I had to accept. I folded the letter, placed it back in the drawer, and shut it away. Not as a way to forget, but as a way to move forward. A year after my mother's death, I bought a house. Not as a replacement for the one she had sold. Not as a symbol of revenge. But because I finally wanted a place to call my own. Something built on my terms. On the day I moved in, Jason showed up with a bottle of whiskey and a grin. "To fresh starts," he said, handing me a glass. I raised mine. "To letting go." We clinked our glasses, and for the first time in years, I felt something I never thought I'd feel again. Peace. The past would always be there. The scars would never fully fade. But I was done letting them define me. I had spent too long chasing revenge. Now, I was finally ready to chase happiness. And this time, I wouldn't let it go.